Hi, my name is Lyle Sopel. I'm a jade and gemstone artist, and I'm here to share and inspire. And today we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to talk about the project that I'm working on and some of the techniques that I used to make this. So have a look at this. This is a flower, an orchid, and it's made up of a ruby centerpiece and cachalong outside petals. So it's not finished yet, it's just kind of an experiment really for me, because I've never actually worked on anything like this before. But I wanted to show you how the process takes place and what's involved in putting this together. But first of all, what it entailed was being involved with a variety of different kinds of stone. Now, the first thing that's really interesting to me is the ruby. This is natural ruby. And it's been cut open, and you can see from the top view just some of the crystal formation, and it was probably a little bit larger like this before it was cut. It was very fascinating. Now, this ruby is from the Congo, Africa, and what's surrounding it is zoite, which is a matrix to the ruby, and it needs to have this chemical combination that's in the zoite and the ruby in order to form its crystal. So this is it in a variety of different angles here. This is cut open again, and you can see how beautiful that zoite is with the ruby here. And so along with that, the flower petals came from this stone, which is the cachalong, and it comes from Central Asia, and it's supposed to be a family in the family of opal, which is kind of strange. It doesn't have any flash or anything, but it's incredibly dense, incredibly hard, and I can carve it very thin without it breaking. So that's what I'm really interested in, is being able to do that with this stone, and also have a white stone, which is fantastic. So very few minerals in the world are actually red or white. There's always this combination of different things. So I'm really excited about being able to do this with red, ruby, and the white cachalong. So if you just want to browse some of my workbench, this week we have a lot of things in play, and I'm really fascinated by the combination of different sorts of materials that I work with. It's always inspiring to have this kind of stuff here today in the studio. So they all belong to some pre-organized design. So at some point in the future, you'll be able to see what those are. But at this point, we're just going to talk about the flower. And also today, I wanted to talk about imagination and discipline, which seem to be really at two ends of the scale in regards to having a successful carving studio or a successful creative studio of any kind. Imagination and discipline, they don't seem to ever work together, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it and share my ideas on how that those two things really do work together, and without one or the other you can't have success. But first of all, because Jesse had asked in the past, I want to show you some of my detailed things that I'm going to use to make this flower. So come on over here. So of course, the first thing you do is cut the stone, but cut it in blocks and shapes that fit the idea that I want, both the ruby and the cachalong. So it takes a little bit of engineering in order to make this thing come about, but here we go. So as you can see, it's been made in separate pieces, and this is the centerpiece. This will hold it all together. And for the time being, this is just a rough shape. It's not honed into what it's going to be in the end. And in the end, it will attach to a jade stem, and then there'll be jade leaves as well. And this is part of another more imaginative kind of project that's in the works. But for the time being, this is how it all comes together, the engineering of it. So what I will do is glue these pieces into that centerpiece and then grind that centerpiece thin so it kind of disappears and be part of the natural look of the flower. So, in order to do this, I first of all grind the shapes with a coarser grinder. Like I have a 10-inch diamond grinder that I use, and then I have a sanding drum, and so those kinds of tools I think everybody in the lapidary world will be familiar with, and that's what I use to get to this point. I grind and sand and cut. And so this is my technique. This is how I would approach this. And so from that point, I use a variety of different tools. Like in this case, I like to use this tool here, which is it's a Korean tool. Now this is like an ultrasonic tool. It's the motor is in the handpiece, and this is the electrical source and the speed control here. So I can turn it up or turn it down depending on how fast I want it to go. But this is originally designed for dental work, so it's very finely honed tool. It doesn't vibrate and is very good for this kind of work. And to accompany that, I use a diamond point that is a 100 grit. So this will do carving, and it will also give me detailing when I change the bits. So I'll change the bit and I'll show you what I'm going to do here on the patterns that I've started. So I think it's important to have a little more pattern on the piece. So I'm going to start here with a cut. I think this just adds a little more to the piece. So that gives a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing, and then where the line comes through, I give it a little notch, kind of share the idea of what the leaf is. And I can do this without water, and I think that's to my advantage here when I'm doing this detail, because I can see what I'm doing. It's very important to see where your tool is cutting in these fine areas. And as you can see, the light cuts like this, they don't need water. It's fine. It's not damaging the stone in any way. If it was more aggressive, the water would have to cool the stone in order for it to cut well and not damage the stone while you work it. But in this case, so now we're getting kind of the look of the leaf and adding a little more pattern to the thing. So what I will do after this is I will sand the surface with a 600 grit. And here's a technique that I use on this tool. Now, not everybody might know this, but this is something that I've worked out myself, is I use a diamond paper, and the diamonds are just in little pellets there glued to the surface of this paper. And so I put it together so I have diamond on either side of this pad, and then I put it onto a mandrel with a screw. So what this does is it gives me a diamond surface on one side and a diamond surface on the other side, and when I want to work in the curves and so on, I can work into it like this. I can just bend it and push it around as I need to in order to shape the interior of the curves, and that smooths the surface. So after a series of sandings, I'll go to a polish. But sometimes I can't get into the places that I need, and so I make this tool up. This is like the old diamond tools I have, and I use a drill and I cut out the silicon carbide as a slug out of a silicon carbide wheel like this. And in this case, I take the slug out, drill it out, and I use it as my homemade silicon carbide tools, and I glue it onto the top of my hand tool here. So this is just a worn out diamond bit, and I glue it on, and then I can shape it. I can use it in that handpiece, and I can shape this tool with another diamond tool or sandpaper and get it to any shape I want. And then I can also use that as a finishing tool to get into some of the tight places I need. So that's really helpful. So I can go from that to a Cratex, or this is actually another diamond tool that's maybe not too easily to see, but it's got 600 grit diamond into it, and that also gives me a finer surface. So from that I can go to felt, and I use felt mounted on a point, and I can get inside and polish with this, and I use a diamond paste, and it's a fine grit diamond paste, and it'll polish the surface. So the same thing, the same process is applied to the ruby. I cut the surface and I go into it with the silicon carbide to smooth it, and then the paper to sand it on the outside. And then put it all together into one composition, and then I'm going to add that to another thing. So that's technique. So technique is one thing, and it's not the whole process. If you're thinking about being a creative person in a studio and you want to continue to be imaginative, you need a way to continue to encourage your imagination to develop, because what's really important is to be unique every time you create a sculpture, and that's what clients really enjoy. So I want to ask a question. What do you think is more important, imagination or technique? So you can let me know, but personally I feel that the imagination is more important than technique, because technique is something that is like an extension of your tools. You just learn how to deal with that, and you can make whatever you want. And I think a technique can be learned by anybody, as long as the desire to know how is great enough, and the willingness to put out the energy to learn. But imagination is your own individual expression. It's your unique interpretation of your art form. And that's what has the most value. That's what a collector truly wants when they are buying art of any sort. They want to see unique character. And I believe that the imagination can be enhanced, and you can bring forward a lot of that. One of the things that really kind of blows me away is when I go to a social gathering in some way and people ask me what I do for a living, and I tell them that I'm an artist, and they go, oh my God, they always say, I wish I was imaginative, and I can't believe that people don't think that they are imaginative, because it's such a natural part of who we are as human beings. I can remember when I went, I was a student, or a child actually, going to school. I had a very active imagination, and I spent a lot of my time looking out the window. And eventually, through my school years, I was trained to not have my imagination stray outside the window, but come more into the classroom and be more academic. And I had to actually put my imagination in the background of my mind and stay more academic. And through time, I think my imagination became kind of stilted, or wasn't as active as it was as a young child. So when I first started going to art school, that was the first time in my life that I actually experienced my imagination as a valuable asset. So in art school, the imagination was demanded. You needed to bring your imaginative ideas forward in order to become a success in the school, to get grades, to get through it. So I developed a way, while I was going to school, to bring my imagination more forward, and I developed a way that allowed me to create new and different things every time I was working on them. But I didn't really know how I did it. I did it unconsciously. I had the desire, and so my imagination came out in a way that I wasn't really conscious of. And through time, as I've developed my abilities in the studio that I've had for more than 35 years, and every piece I create is unique, I found that I do something that is repeatable. It's like a technique. It's a thing that I have become disciplined in, and I can share that with you. So I found that whenever I needed to be imaginative, when I, say, producing some work for a show or something like that, I could actually sit down with a notepad, a sketchbook, and draw out the ideas that I wanted to do for the upcoming show. And I could do it a series of them, or whatever. It wasn't one, it was a whole group. And I realized that I had the ability to actually call on my imagination and express. That was through practice and through discipline. So what it was that I was doing, and I realized this after analyzing my thought process, was that I would sit down and I would allow my mind to be quiet. But the first thing I would do is decide what the subject was that I wanted. I wanted to create. If it were whatever it was, I'd do research. If it was eagles or raven, whatever the subject was that I wanted to create, I would fill my mind with that subject. I would research it on the internet, and I'd go through the books I have, and I'd study, read about the subject, and just really imbibe everything I wanted to know about the subject. Then I would sit quietly. I would sit quietly for 5 minutes, and I would just allow everything to leave my mind. And you might want to call this meditation or a focused attention or something like that. But the way to do it is to sit quietly. You can close your eyes. You can take a deep breath in and follow that breath in. And then you can take a deep breath out and allow that out. And you go in and out, in and out. And just allow that to quiet your mind. Now, do that for at least 5 minutes or however long you feel comfortable. Then, take a pencil and a sketchbook and draw the first thing that comes to your mind. Whatever it is, you just have to trust that your mind will come forth with your unique idea, whatever that is. And when you see that one thing, then you can look at it and imagine what it might be, or it's already there. And then do 5 more drawings of that same thing. Sketches. It doesn't have to be a detailed thing, just 5 more sketches. And I promise you, within that group of sketches will be a unique design that will help you into the next subject or theme of work that you want to do. So I'd be really wonderful if you try this and then commented back to me and let me know how it worked for you. But for me, it's a thing that I've been doing for a very long time, and I am very practiced at it. So I've always used the studio as my place of imagination. And so for me, whenever I walk in the door, my mind just converts right into this state of mind, this imaginative state of mind. And so I would recommend that to you as well, as you choose a place that you want to consider your imaginative place, whether it's a drawing table or in front of your computer or someplace that you can be quiet. But every time you want to be imaginative, you sit there. And every time you sit there or you go into your studio or whatever, you will become disciplined with this idea of imagination. So imagination can be enhanced, but you need discipline to practice it all the time. And it's like no other thing, or like any other thing, whether it's an athletic endeavor, you want to get better at running or whatever it is you want to do. It's like singing or playing a musical instrument. You need to practice. and it's exactly the same way. So that's the way I've approached it. So I became more and more, I guess, familiar with this feeling. And so now it's just something that I can call up at any time I need it. And I can work on a variety of different things all the time. Because my imagination is now in the forefront of my mind. And I use it to be successful in the art forms that I do. So in my mind, there's nothing more valuable in the art world than a very vivid imagination. That's what a collector wants to see in a work of art. That's what draws their attention to your art. And that's what they're willing to pay the money for, the uniqueness. And the whole world is like that, actually. Uniqueness is something that we all appreciate and praise highly. So, good luck with your imagination, and I hope this was helpful in some way, and thank you for joining me. If I can answer any comments, I would do that as soon as I can. Thanks for being with me today. Bye for now.